World of Warcraft is changing the game, again, and there's quite a bit to talk about. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming. Blizzard's cadence right now is actually unreal. We just had 11.1 drop, then like a day after Season 2 launched, they talked about what was coming with 11.1.5 Nightfall, and now it's on the PTR, and I've played it. It's pretty good. Bit of a mixed bag for me, but I want to get into it because there's some really important trends here, some really cool ideas, and then some things that just feel a bit unfinished. It being PTR makes sense though. Let's start off with what I'm talking about with the title of this video and the beginning sentence. The cooldown manager. The thing that in my opinion changes the game. This is another example of Blizzard not resting on their laurels and trying to implement functionality that we already had with add-ons but into the base UI for the game. This is important in my opinion for a couple of reasons. One, how good is the cooldown manager? I played around with it a little bit. You can customize it a little bit, and I do mean a little bit. You have the basic edit functionality and edit mode that you have with basic vanilla WoW UI at this point. You can change how many rows or columns are displayed for each of the little like boxes of abilities it showcases to you. But to my knowledge, you can't reorder them or anything like that. And you may be going, Jmulls, why wouldn't I just use weak auras? Well, if you're already someone who uses add-on functionality for this level of customization and information availability, something like cooldown manager isn't for you, and I highly doubt that you would actually swap over to utilize it because weak auras are still far more powerful and customizable than whatever cooldown manager is. That is not why I'm saying that it's going to change the game or anything like that. Because if you're already asking that question, this wasn't designed for you. To me, this feels designed for all of those players that just use vanilla UI and don't mess around with add-ons to any significant degree. Or they may use a couple of add-ons, but nothing as intensive like weak auras. Or if they do use weak auras, they just grab a preset off the internet somewhere and rip with that. It's very basic, and I don't want to get into like specific issues that the cooldown manager has because I'm just chalking it up to it being the PTR and that Blizzard will fix it throughout the PTR cycle before 6.1.5 comes out and possibly even afterwards. I care about like what this system can ideally do. But it's like Blizzard has already addressed some of this feedback and some of the elements pertaining to cooldown manager, like in this blue post where they're actually just talking about being able to hide or rearrange elements on the new cooldown manager just in a future patch. This doesn't feel like it's something one and done, it's something they're going to iterate on in the future. Cool, but there's a lot of people in this game that do not utilize add-ons to an extensive degree or anything like that, and if you give them functionality in the base UI to better inform the player as to what abilities are available or what's on cooldown and stuff like that, that's more functionality than the game used to have. It's going in the right direction, and not just resting on the old tired philosophy of, we'll just allow add-on editors to fix our like crap UI. I never liked that philosophy, and I'm glad they're not sticking to that, and they're actively trying to improve the base user experience, because especially if you're trying to generate new players into this game, it is wildly unrealistic to expect new players to not only try and get into the game, but be up to date on how to get add-ons, how to utilize them, customize them. They're just trying to play the game, they're trying to get immersed in the experience, have this stuff be available at a basic level with the vanilla UI, and that's what this is. That is what this is striking. If you only utilized weak auras as a way to essentially remind you of what abilities require prioritization or what's available or what's about to come off cooldown, this fulfills that niche. And if they're going to further allow you to customize it in the future, then that'll be good when it happens, but even on a vanilla level, it's fine. And it largely is plug and play. Like, you just enable this thing in the options and it's already sorted for you. And if you want to rearrange some elements, you can do that if you want. I made it a little bit bigger personally. But you pair that with like the resource tracker that is also in the base UI. And funnily enough, I got most of the functionality that I use weak auras for through now the in-game systems in World of Warcraft. That's crazy, especially considering just how crap the UI used to be before Dragonflight. I'm talking about at a base level. minimal. Hell, I don't even utilize LVUI anymore because I just don't need it. I still use quite a few add-ons, but like the basic UI is fine. And I also quite like the aesthetic. And if this is the trajectory Blizzard is going and trying to take the game in the long run and implement a lot of that functionality we used to get out of add-ons into the base UI to some degree, I think that is healthy. I think that is a good direction for the game. Because if you pair this alongside a revamped new player experience at some point in the future, then these things build off of each other to ideally make World of Warcraft more easily accessible and welcoming to new players. I wouldn't call it that right now, but like we're laying the groundwork and the foundation to be able to capitalize on it in the future. With so much design of yesteryear from Blizzard, it felt short-term. It felt like there was no long-term cohesive vision. With a lot of what they've been doing over the last couple of years, and especially recently, this feels intentional. This feels as if they have a plan, as if they have a strategy to where they want to take this game. Now let's talk about the actual content in 11.15. It's a mixed bag for me. Bear in mind again, it's PTR, so it's inherently unfinished. So everything I say will have that asterisk. Let's start with, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment, that is the Nightfall scenario. It's simply just a catch-up. And if you view it as just catch-up for like ults and stuff like that, you'll have a far more manageable and enjoyable time with it. It's essentially the 6.1x version of Timeless Isle, where instead of just getting a whole new island, we're just going to Hollowfall and Ashkahet, beating some spider bros, and getting some catch-up gear and some cool renown stuff. Some new titles, and some of these titles are badass, by the way. Arrow Knight, Ardent, Flame God, Radiant Officer, Sacred Templar. I'm rocking Sacred Templar on my Paladin main immediately. Not even gonna be a hint, a morsel of hesitation. You get some recolors of the Arathi gear as well, which look incredible in my opinion. You get a tabard that you like upgrade as you go along the 10-track renown. And the content is extremely simple. At least with stuff that is available on the PTR, it just boils down to a few quests, a Nightfall scenario that I don't think is available to test right now, and then all the other quests are pretty much just go to this region, kill some spider people, GG, well played. It is pretty much just a series of kill quests in the open world. Just view them like weekly kill quests or something like that, and that's kind of what this is. Again, outside of whatever the Nightfall scenario thing actually is. I had one scenario where I could actually fight some kind of pretty beefy boss in the open world. The content does largely feel unfinished, and like in terms of story, it was just, hey, champion, guess what? Remember those spider people we fought before? Turns out they didn't like the fact we killed their queen. Who knew? So we're attacking them, they're attacking us. You mind coming down here and like performing some pest control for us? We would really appreciate it. Here's a tabard, here's a new renown track, here's some catch-up gear. It's very simple, right? Dastardly Duos is not available in the PTR, at least to my knowledge. That is the multi-week long event where you're fighting apparently like animatronic versions of past bosses, and we're fighting 2 at a time. Sounds really cool, but it's not available to test right now, at least to my knowledge. The other thing that is available to test to some degree though is Horrific Visions. Remember them from BFA? Yeah, they're back. They are the Horrific Visions from Battle for Azeroth. They're not new ones or anything like that. But they have talked about in the announcement for 11.15 how there's going to be new like rewards, also new masks which are like difficulty modifiers. Think of them like skulls from Halo. And you also get this NPC companion, Soridomi, that you can kind of customize a little bit. You can pretty much tell her what role to be, DPS, healer, or tank, and she pals around with you within the Horrific Vision. I think we only had access to like the beginning experience for Horrific Visions, specifically in Orgrimmar. So if you look at the background footage in this part of the video, you'll just see me absolutely laying a holy smackdown of epic proportions upon Orgrimmar here. Just alliance things, I guess. I remember these things getting rather difficult later on. I imagine that's going to be the case with Horrific Visions as well, with them being revisited. There's like new achievements and everything involving them as well. I believe they brought back the old rewards as well, and you can get some decent-ish gear, stuff in the 630s from what I saw. Again, all that kind of stuff is subject to change though, but it does kind of seem as if in the grand scheme of things, 11.15 is supposed to be the big catch-up patch, and they're giving you multiple avenues of content to catch up either your main character if you're lagging behind, or if you want to get a bunch of ults squared away to either do Season 2 and 11.1 content, or prepare for 11.2 down the line. That's what 11.15 is really going to be for. You have the Nightfall scenario, you can can grind out some, like, titles, transmog, and all that goodness, and some mounts, which is really quick, and you can bang that out on a bunch of ults if you want to. You can also do Horrific Visions, which are still a ton of fun. I highly enjoy them. They like this roguelike mode. Probably should have talked about what they were before, but screw it, we'll do it live. They're essentially like this roguelike mode. You go through either Orgrimmar or Stormwind, whatever's available, and it's split up into multiple different chunks or scenarios. You have this sanity bar that drains over time. You can restore it in a couple of ways. The goal is to perform various objectives there, find some side content, little pieces like potions and stuff like that, if they're available, and it all culminates with fighting a big boss fight in the final destination. If you make it through all that without having your sanity drained to 0 or dying, you're good to go. I did manage to die, which was totally for testing. Don't focus on me getting overwhelmed here. It was for testing, absolutely. If you do manage to die in a Horrific Vision solo, your NPC companion Soridomi can resurrect you. I believe it costs one of like the 3 resources you have to regain your sanity, so it does come at a cost, but it's just a little bit of a buffer. Horrific Visions, in my opinion, is like one of the best pieces of content Blizzard have ever added to World of Warcraft, and bringing them back, even if it's just the ones we had before, bringing them back as like a catch-up mechanic for 11.15 is a great idea, and just fleshes out the amount of stuff you can choose to do if you want. Because it's not like the gear is overly good at anything like that. You can just get better by doing regular Season 2 activities. But if you want some catch-up, you can do some Horrific Visions, you can go do some Nightfall if you want, get a good amount of gear, and then do some Season 2, or prepare for Season whatever, 3, I imagine, with 11.2. Who knows, maybe they would just skip Season 3 and go right to Season 4 for whatever reason, for the vibes. But overall, thumbs up for me. Like, I think the Nightfall scenario, at least the stuff that is available on PTR, is nothing particularly thrilling or anything like that. It is just overworld World of Warcraft content, so it rolls over. You can pretty much pull everything you see, kill them all in like 2 seconds, and you have half your bar filled for each quest. Rinse, repeat a couple of times, job done. But I think my Paladin is probably overgeared for what they actually want Nightfall to be, which is for ults. So if you come in on a freshly capped character, maybe it's a bit more engaging. But it is pretty much just a giant kill list. If you enjoyed Horrific Visions back in Battle for Azeroth, you'll probably enjoy them now. I wasn't able to test the really hard stuff yet because, well, you know, you kind of have to get there first. And the cooldown manager is fine. Like I talked about before, right? If you already use weak auras or you already use other add-ons to track this type of information, this isn't really for you. Unless you just want to uninstall them and just use the basic functionality that is available. In terms of just being able to convey information, it is fine. It's nothing that's gonna blow your pants off or anything like that, and I don't think it's likely to be anything you'll spend like hours and hours tinkering and messing with or anything like that. It's an out-of-the-box solution to just say, hey, you want this kind of functionality that you would ordinarily get from add-ons that is pretty dang important if you want to be able to have relevant information, not have to look around your screen all the dang freaking time. Here you go. It's fine, it's serviceable. They talked about improving it in the future and making it a bit more customizable. Sounds good to me. It's a continued step in the right direction for World of Warcraft. And while if you play this game to a high level or you take World of Warcraft very seriously and you utilize these kinds of add-ons, you may be going, like, what's the point here? Why would I ever care about this? You probably won't, but for all those other more casual players or people who are just starting the game or just coming back to it, and they don't want to have to mess around with a bunch of add-ons and stuff like that, this is targeting that crowd, and that's a rather sizable crowd. And again, if you pair this alongside a better new player or returning player experience in the future, it builds off of each other. All these small changes they've made to the UI make the game far more approachable and, well, understandable. However, I do have one piece of feedback for this functionality for Blizzard. Since that is clearly the audience you are targeting with this functionality, I think it would be important to at least have some kind of tooltip for what each of these buttons actually are. Sure, it informs the player that these buttons exist, but if I hover over the individual button, just put up a little tooltip that says Templar Strike, Judgment, whatever. Just something basic like that. It doesn't have to be clickable or anything like that. Just something to inform especially new players saying, hey, this is what this button is, this is what we're tracking here, so it's more digestible and understandable so a new player doesn't get overwhelmed by a bunch of icons they may not know the meaning to. And like, yeah, you can just go to the spellbook to find out what the icon is for, but for a new player, I can imagine that being a little bit overwhelming with the amount of buttons this game has. Plus, I think it would just look look and feel cleaner and more understandable and more approachable. Little stuff like that matters a lot for people that are just joining the game or just returning, because this game has changed a lot over the last few years. And there's quite a few things that a lot of people, especially players who play World of Warcraft a lot, just take for granted. That a new player or returning player may not fully understand or comprehend, or may just not click. But again, this is a step in the right direction. So with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with how you're feeling about 11.1.5. Are you excited for it? You looking forward to it? Not your cup of tea? Let me know why. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!